Who are you in this vast multiverse? Mr. Strange?
The multiverse is a concept about which we know frighteningly little. Not that it stopped the animation team over at Sony from going buck wild with it, but Marvel Studios is catching up.
Why the hell is there an alligator in here?
He's a Loki!
Spider-Man No Way Home broke the brains of fans by having two previous iterations of Peter Parker join the MCU's version to battle interloping villains from the interloping web-slingers worlds. Marvel has now established that appearances from any of their previously introduced characters are now fair game, which is why Professor X's cameo in the trailer for Doctor Strange's latest adventure feels like the tip of a very large, mind-bending iceberg. Marvel's post-Endgame releases have been steadily educating viewers on the rules, I guess if you can call them that, of how these different realities will coexist with one another. But all this metaphysical stuff can be a lot to wrap your head around, so we're gonna do some magic fingers and get you caught up on the state of the multiverse before Doctor Strange goes mad therein. Beware of spoilers ahead for all recent MCU stories, Venom Let There Be Carnage, and Morbius.
Dr. Michael Morbius.
Sorry, Doctor. They get very persnickety about that.
Mr. Strange?
Doctor, actually.
The concept of the multiverse is first meaningfully explored in Doctor Strange's MCU debut, after a car accident ends Stephen Strange's successful career as a neurosurgeon. Upon arriving in search of healing at Kamar-Taj, the Ancient One sends him hurtling through these myriad realities to prove to him that creation is far greater and far more disturbing than he can possibly comprehend. Ugh, fingies. Through his studies in sorcery, Strange also learns about different dimensions interlaced with visible reality. There's the astral plane, where your spirit can do your homework for you, the mirror dimension, and the dark dimension, home to the ravenous Dormammu. Ant-Man also introduces the quantum realm, a subatomic space through which time gets distorted in very weird and plot-convenient ways. Speaking of time, Strange eventually masters the Time Stone and uses it to trap the evil Dormammu in a time loop, forcing him to abandon his plans to consume Earth. Though Strange saves the day, his colleague Mordo is a zealot for natural law and disapproves of Strange's methods.
The bill comes due. Always.
He abandons his career as a master of the mystic arts, vowing to cut down on the amount of magic users before more damage can be done.
Too many sorcerers.
But turns out messing with time is the only remedy for a mad titan snapping half of all living beings out of existence. With Strange off the board, the surviving Avengers manage to enter the quantum realm in an attempt to recover all 6 Infinity Stones through various points in time to undo Thanos' snap. As the Ancient One defends the New York Sanctum from Loki's invasion in 2012, Bruce Banner asks her to relinquish the Time Stone. The Ancient One initially refuses, citing the fact that removing the stone from this point in time would doom her timeline to becoming a branch reality defenseless against the mystical threats she's sworn to defend against. But the Ancient One reconsiders after learning that Strange willingly gave the Time Stone over to Thanos. Her faith in her future student so unshakable that she's willing to take a leap of faith in loaning it out to Jolly Green Genius over here and risking her own reality. Of course, things don't go exactly according to plan. Loki manages to snag the Space Stone and portal out of Stark Tower, forcing Steve and Tony to nab it from farther back in the timeline. They return to the present to complete the set of 6 stones, reverse the snap, and dust Thanos, all in a day's work, whatever that even means anymore. Cap returns all the stones to their various homes in the timeline, reducing the risk of dangerous branch realities from their time heist threatening the fabric of existence. But not entirely. We'll come back to that little scamp in just a bit. Now you'll notice at this point we're still squarely in the camp of altering the timeline of a single reality, without much focus on those other realities out there. But even though disgruntled Stark Industries employee Quentin Beck is only masquerading as a hero from a different universe, Far From Home is where the possibilities of multiversal storytelling start to reveal themselves, especially in relation to alternate universe iterations of characters audiences are already familiar with.
Doctor Strange.
That's pretty good. But it's taken.
J.K. Simmons, whose portrayal of J. Jonah Jameson in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is the stuff of legend, reprises the character's MCU variant in the final moments of the movie as Beck announces Spider-Man's secret identity to the world.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker.
It's the first time an actor from a non-MCU Marvel movie has returned to a role they'd previously played, but it sure as heck won't be the last. In the span of a few years, Wanda Maximoff lost her brother Pietro and her love Vision, plus she's died and come back to life, so she definitely needs a mental vacation. But when you've got hyper-powerful magic abilities and a helicarrier full of grief to process, things can get a little messy. Case in point, Wanda psychically imprisons an entire New Jersey town as she warps reality into various idyllic scenarios based on the sitcoms of her youth. That includes conjuring up a pair of superpowered sons and one very surprising special guest star, her not-so-dead brother Pietro. But stepping back here for a sec, that is definitely not the Pietro we know. Even though we eventually learn that this is just a bewitched Westview citizen by the name of, Ralph Boner. It is a very cheeky choice to cast Evan Peters to play a fake Quicksilver, seeing as he famously played the character across the multiverse over in Fox's X-Men franchise. The lines between realities are really starting to blur, something Wanda is banking on by the end of the season as she lifts the hex on Westview and bids farewell to her magically generated family. After unlocking her power as the Scarlet Witch, she reclaims a mystical tome known as the Darkhold from rival witch Agatha Harkness. This thing, or at least a variant of it, popped up in both Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Runaways, and it's lousy with evil incantations. But Wanda's getting real comfortable with chaos magic. She uses Doctor Strange's astral studying technique to find a way to recover her, I guess, real sons from the vast expanse of the multiverse. This stuff is getting real wacky. Like alligator Loki wacky. Like alligator Loki biting the hand off another Loki wacky. Remember Loki stealing the Space Stone from 2012 and escaping the clutches of the Avengers? His escapades draw the attention of the Time Variance Authority, and it's through this mysterious and powerful organization we finally get an in-depth lesson on the inner workings of the multiverse. You see, the TVA exists outside of time and space as we know it with the purpose of pruning the branch realities the Ancient One warned about to keep the paradoxes from corrupting the sacred timeline. A term we can understand as preordained MCU history and the TVA's preferred version of Christmas past, present, and future. Why is the TVA so intent on preserving this series of events? Loki joins forces with his multiversal variant, Sylvie, to find out. And action, he eventually gets pruned himself. But being pruned doesn't result in getting snapped out of existence Thanos style. More like having your matter displaced to the end of time where a hungry beast called Alioth is waiting to consume your body and soul. With help from their variants, Loki and Sylvie are able to get past Alioth and make it to the Citadel at the end of time, where the TVA's head honcho, He Who Remains, watches over all. Though the name Kang has yet to be dropped, He Who Remains all but confirms that he's a variant of the Temporal Conqueror of comics lore when he details the multiversal conflict that arises in the 31st century after he opened the door to collaborating with his counterparts from across parallel universes. That conflict nearly tore time itself apart, and so He Who Remains used Alioth to prune all of his variants' branch realities at the point of their creation, Nexus events, and to isolate the sacred timeline in relative safety. But now, He Who Remains is ready to retire, giving Loki and Sylvie a choice.
Kill me and the sacred timeline is completely exposed, multiversal or you take over
And return to the TVA as its benevolent rulers.
This is all happening as the sacred timeline is approaching a point of no return moment, a threshold that He Who Remains remarks on having just been crossed as some event out in the multiverse sends the future into unknown territory. One popular fan theory points to that being the awakening of the Scarlet Witch back on Earth, but for now, Loki and Sylvie don't get to factor that into their choice. Though Loki tries to stop her, Sylvie strands him at the TVA's headquarters and enacts her revenge on the man responsible for her timeline being pruned. By killing He Who Remains, Sylvie causes the sacred timeline to branch out into various realities and makes everything vulnerable to villainous forces we've yet to fully understand. But one thing's for sure, one of them has taken over as the leader of the TVA, and he looks very Kang-y. Now that reality is splintering over in live-action land, Marvel's What If animated series provides a great look at how the events of the MCU differed in neighboring realities. Note that I said differed and not could have differed. We're in the multiverse now, baby. All this stuff is canon. These alt history stories are told from the omniscient perspective of Uatu the Watcher, one of many multiversal historians who made their first appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 talking to Stan Lee, or being talked at by Stan Lee.
Hey, you were supposed to be my lift home.
We get to see what would have happened if Peggy Carter had taken the super soldier serum meant for Steve Rogers, or if Killmonger had saved Tony Stark before he was imprisoned in Afghanistan, thus robbing the world of Iron Man. But one of the stories Uatu observes that may have more immediate ramifications is that of the good Doctor Strange, and what happened in a world where his beloved Christine Palmer was killed in the accident which set him on his path to Camertage in the mainline MCU. After countless failed attempts to stop this outcome, the Ancient One informs Strange that Christine's death is an absolute point in time, a moment upon which the future is dependent and cannot be altered at the risk of collapsing reality itself.
Nothing is impossible. You taught me that. I only require more power.
Strange becomes corrupted by the powerful beings he absorbs in his quest for more power, transforming him into the monstrous Strange Supreme. Though he's eventually successful in reviving Christine, the act causes such instability in the universe that reality crashes down around them and Strange Supreme loses her all over again. He's left alone by Uatu in a collapsing universe begging for forgiveness. For like 4 episodes. That is until the Watcher needs to call in the cavalry after an alternate universe Ultron assembles the Infinity Stones and discovers the existence of the multiverse. Not content to remake just his universe in his own image, Ultron challenges the Watcher to a multiversal melee, one which the Watcher is forced to flee from. He retreats to Strange Supreme's collapsed reality and enlists him into the Guardians of the Multiverse, along with more of our alt history super friends. Their powers combined, they succeed in separating the stones from both Ultron and a treacherous Killmonger and freeze the two of them in a pocket universe. One left in the care of Strange Supreme. Maybe he's not so bad after all. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings doesn't do much to advance the MCU's multiverse storyline. Though Shang-Chi's interactions with the mystical realm of Ta Lo do reinforce the idea of different dimensions being present within each individual universe. Shang-Chi's mid-credits scene does, however, hint that the titular Ten Rings may not have originated in this universe. During a debrief with Wong, Bruce Banner, and Captain Marvel, Wong notes that the rings don't match any item in Camertage's presumably comprehensive codex, and that they're broadcasting a beacon. To what or where is anyone's guess. Now here is where the potential of the multiverse starts getting very interesting for fans of heroes from past Marvel movies. After Mysterio reveals Spider-Man's secret identity, Peter goes to Doctor Strange and asks him to cast a spell to wipe that juicy knowledge from the brain of everyone on Earth. That's a heck of a request, but one that Strange seems willing enough to oblige. But predictably, things go off the rails when Strange is casting the spell. Peter keeps trying to add names to the list of people that'll remember him, and it forces Strange to trap the spell in a magical containment orb not unlike the ones we saw in What If. Peter soon discovers that Strange's botched spell had some interesting aftershocks.
Hello, Peter.
He encounters Spider-Man villains from different universes. Ones in which he looks like this, and this. Oh, no, let's not judge him on his worst day. This. Though we spend our time with the Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, Lizard, and Electro of Sony's 2 previous Spider-Man franchises, they aren't the only characters affected by Strange's spell. The credit scenes for Venom Let There Be Carnage and No Way Home confirm that while Venom did end up in the MCU, he was too busy drinking on a beach to cause Spidey any extra trouble. Interesting to note here that Venom's right in the middle of telling Eddie that the symbiotes share 80 billion years of knowledge from across the multiverse just before they're pulled over from across the multiverse. And Morbius's credit scenes reveal that Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, actually got zapped over to the universe shared by the living vampire and Venom, with Morbius and Vulture meeting up to discuss, evil stuff. But Peter's got plenty of villains to deal with without Venom and Vulture to worry about. Luckily, things aren't all bad, and he gets some help from a couple of older and wiser web-slingers who've also been pulled into the MCU. Kind of makes you wonder what other spider people exist out there in the multiverse. The three Peters eventually succeed in helping the villains change their wicked ways, but one of Goblin's pumpkin bombs destroys the orb containing Strange's spell, and everyone who knows Spider-Man from every universe begins to bleed into the MCU. That's a lot of hungry mouths to feed, so Strange resorts to the only option left, erasing Peter Parker from everyone's memory. The specifics as to why this would work and whether this affects every Peter Parker in the multiverse, including these dudes, are yet to be fully explored, but MCU Peter's sacrifice pays off and restores the integrity of his universe, at least for the time being. Because just as Mordo warned, it seems that the multiverse is going haywire thanks to all of the magical meddling going on these days. And from what we've seen so far, many of the elements that the MCU has been seeding to this point will be coming back into play. The Scarlet Witch, seems to be flexing her new abilities in search of sons Billy and Tommy. Realities are coming under attack from forces unknown, though the visual language of those attacks looks very familiar after Loki and What If. Strange is faced with a corrupted version of himself that may or may not be Strange Supreme, and now that everyone's used to characters being pulled through the multiverse into the MCU, we're getting some more time with everyone's favorite professor, sorry Dumbledore, Charles Xavier.
We should tell him the truth.
What's that truth? That nothing is real anymore and time is a flat circle? We'll find out when Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness hits theaters. Until then, be sure to check out our thoughts on Morbius and Moon Knight, and as always, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever in the multiverse you like to watch IGN.